and I understand that Christmas time should be one of the most hope-filled times of all the year, right? We understand. Where are we at? Are we in church? Come on, somebody help me. We are in church. And this is a place that we understand we are hope dealers to our culture today. And yet you and I know that we live in a culture today, there's people that we rub shoulders with, people we work with, people that we live with, people that we live in the neighborhoods we shop with, that they are looking for hope. They need some hope. Why? Because there's so many things that happen in our world today that just seems to be unfair. They just don't seem like they should fit in our lives. You know, I love warning signs. You know, right now you're doing shopping. We've been shopping. We got grandkids. And, you know, a lot of times you pick up the product. You want to look at the age appropriate. And you want to find out the warning. How many know there's warning over everything you purchase anymore? It just kind of bums you out. You know, you don't want to buy anything. But I do a lot of shopping online. And I've just been looking at some of the warning signs on the driving mirror that actually you can purchase it in the USA. It says on this mirror, remember, objects in the mirror are actually behind you. Do you really have to tell people that? On a steering wheel lock, okay, I was looking at one of these the other day. I was in a parts store. On a steering wheel lock, there's a warning sign that says "Remove lock before driving." Really, come on. We have to have that on a Swedish chainsaw. I was looking. Do not try to stop the saw with your hands. Come on. On a hair coloring kit. Now, I don't buy that from me, but I'm just on a hair coloring. Yeah, some of you act like I'm not true. On a hair coloring kit, it said, do not use as an ice cream topping. Okay, maybe I do need that to know that. On a pair of lambskin gloves. I was going to buy me some more gloves. And it simply says on this, no lambs were killed in the making of these gloves. Well, how can they be lambskin gloves? Are you with me? Come on, don't. Yeah, you and I know there's all kind of labels out there. I think that when every child is born in this world, there should be a sign over their head that should simply say, beware of life's side effects, okay? Hey, here's a picture right here. Doesn't that look like Joshua, River Joshua to you? That's Papa. Papa was 18 months old there, and I weighed 30-something pounds, okay? And I love dessert even at 18 months, I think my mama said. But I think when kids come in this world, we should have life side effects. What do you mean, Pastor? I mean, the side effects to life is pain, suffering, heartbreak, disappointment, broken relationships, abuse, and death. Anybody ever have any of those side effects affect your life? Come on. We understand we live in this broken world, and everybody that we come in contact with, at some point, they've had to deal with these side effects. And studies show that one of the most commodities that is needed in order for a person to be able to navigate through a pain or a suffering or a heartbreak or a disappointment, broken relationship, abuse, whatever it is, listen, one of the fundamental things that a person needs is that they need hope. Listen, one of the fundamental questions that people are asking when they're sitting in a doctor's office and they're waiting for the reports to be brought in, the test results to come back, they're sitting there and they're simply wanting to know, is there going to be hope? Come on, you understand that. When you're standing beside the bedside of a person that's in a hospital room, you're in ICU, wherever it is, you're sitting there wondering, is there going to be hope? Remember last week I told you that studies show we can live 40 to 50 days without food, and we can live about 3 to 7 days without water, and we can live about 6 to 8 minutes without air, but we cannot live 1 second without hope. You and I need hope to cope. Hope is what makes all the difference in the world. It's essential for you and I to handle the crisis. When a man has hope, he is capable of being able to bear incredible burdens and even cruel punishment if he has some type of hope. And here's what you and I can tell people. Write this down. Listen, God is the source of our hope. Come on, you believe that? Well, maybe I need to go to another church and preach that. Do you believe God is the source of our hope? We have no other message than to point people to God. And somebody said, well, surely people know that. No, they don't know that, because people fall for all kind of scams trying to find hope, and they're often given false hope. People will go to psychic hotlines. They go to palm reading. They go to astrologies. They go to fake healers and quack cure. You know, somebody was telling me about that they use a palm reader or they use a psychic that's out in California, based in California. I said, well, how come if they're so good, how come they didn't tell people about the fires? If you're a psychic, wouldn't that be something you think should be on your radar? Come on. Well, listen, but it's when people go to these kind of avenues that they end up disappointed and they lose hope. It's the reason why you and I, listen, it is absolutely the most important thing that you can put on your radar every day is, God, I want to be a hope dealer. God, I want to be a person that steps into somebody's disappointment and somebody's pain and somebody's suffering and somebody's agony and somebody's misery. And I don't want to be a person that just gives sympathy. I want to have empathy to the point I can say, I can tell you about a God who is a source of your hope. Look at this verse. I better read some verses in the Bible. Look at Romans 15 and 13. The Bible says this, may the God of hope, may the God of hope, what? Fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. The Good News Translation says, may God, the source of the hope. God is the source of our hope. What can he do? What will he do? May he fill you with joy, peace, and through your faith in him. Listen, in other words, as you and I put our faith in God, the Bible says we have this tremendous hope, and out of that hope is what gives us peace and joy. You see, some people, they want to say, well, I need joy, I need peace in my life. You'll never have joy and peace until you get acquainted with the source of your hope. Because joy and peace is always based upon circumstances. Look at Psalms 31 and verse 24. The Bible says this, so be strong and take courage, all you who put your hope in the Lord. When you put your hope in the Lord, he said we can be strong and take courage. Psalms 39 and 7, look at that verse. And so, Lord, where do I put my hope? And then he says, my only hope is in you. And then specifically, he says here in Psalms 52 and 9, I love the Bible. It's the reason why some of you could read the Bible every day. It might help you a little bit because it's full of hope. And the Bible says in Psalm 52 and 9, in your name I will hope, for your name is good. What does he mean? How do you put hope in a name? What's the big deal about a name that we put hope in? And what most of us here, if you have a little bit of Bible knowledge about you, if you've been around Christianity very long, you understand the fact that in the Old Testament, names were given specifically to people that dealt with their character. Names were given that were tied to who there was in their character, how they would develop. We have a culture today, we just pick out names because they sound good or nobody else is named that. Come on, somebody help me. In 2017, you know what the most popular names was? Number one was Jacob. Emily was the girl's name. Then you had Michael, Emma, Joshua, Madison, Matthew, Olivia, Ethan, and Hannah. Those was all popular names that people used. And again, in our culture today, we just grab a name. Nobody has it. Or, well, this is, in my lineage. It's in my family genealogy that I want to use this name. But in the ancient culture, a name was always attributed to something. It dealt with a character. So when God shows up, and God gets ready to reveal himself to his people, and God gets ready to give them tremendous hope, guess what he does? He starts giving them names. There's over 20 different names in the Old Testament that God used to provide to his people hope. I'll give you just a few. I put in your notes, Jehovah Shalom means I'm the God who gives you peace. God understood that people needed peace and joy. He said, I am Jehovah Shalom. I come to you. I'm Jehovah Shalom. I am the God who gives you peace. Jehovah Jireh, that's another name. He said, I'm the God who provides for all of your needs. Isn't it wonderful that God does that for us? God says, despite what your need is, despite what your circumstance is, listen, you show me a need, God says, I can meet that need for you. God said, I am Jehovah Jireh. Then he says in Jehovah, I am Jehovah Shammah. I'm the God who's always there. Do you understand that abandonment is one of the key issues in our culture today that drives most people to lose hope? Is they feel like that, and they have this fear that they might be abandoned somewhere along the line. And yet when you and I begin to understand that we have a God that he said, I will always be there for you. God said, I'm in your past, I'm in your present, but I'm also in your future. There's no place, the Bible says, that we can go that God isn't there. Isn't that awesome? When you understand that he's a God that gives you peace, he's a God that provides. I know there's about 20 other names that we could, but I simply want you to say, the Bible said, I put my hope in your name. We have a God that is the source of our hope. So which is, look at this next verse, and then we're going to walk you through three things this morning. Romans 8:28 says this, and we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them. The Message Bible says it like this. That's why we can be sure, everybody say be sure, that every detail in our lives for those who has a love for God is worked into something good. Now watch this. If you and I are going to live out the fact that God is the source of our hope, here's the first thing you have to do. Write this down in your notes. Number one, that he has a purpose that is working in me. This God of hope, this source of hope, his purpose is working in me. Listen, when God is the source of your hope, no matter what's happening in your life, good, bad, ugly, the Bible says God has a purpose that's working in us. And when you and I when we have a problem in our life, and this problem, there's no rhyme, there's no reason to why it's happening. Pastor, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, it's just difficult to handle. But listen, when you and I can see a purpose behind our problem, how many understand it gives you hope? When you can see there's a purpose behind what you're going through, it gives you hope. There's enormous power to be able to endure something if you begin to believe there is a purpose here. Even if it doesn't make sense, even if it's beyond my understanding, when God is the source of my life, when his purpose is at work in my life, I can believe that he's doing good things in my life, and I can trust him. You with me? You can trust him. That's a huge thing in your life if you're going to continue to hold on to hope when you're experiencing some of the difficulties that life can give us. Again, go back. Look at that verse one more time. We know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God, who are called according to his purpose for them. This is such a significant verse if you and I are going to have hope. Now listen, first of all, look at that verse. I want you to notice what it doesn't say. It doesn't say all things work out the way I want it to. Are you with me? Some people wanted to say that. We really wanted to interpret that way, but it doesn't say, hey, guess what? Everything works out the way that you want it to. It doesn't even say everything has a happy ending upon this earth, because you and I know everything doesn't have a happy ending upon this earth, right? Reality, you know what reality teaches us? Every patient doesn't get well. Are you with me? Reality teaches us not every couple that gets married and has marriage problems will get through that and end up happily ever after. Reality teaches us not every business decision is going to make you $1 million. Am I preaching to anybody? Reality teaches me not every problem gets solved on earth the way I think it should. Reality teaches me not every child is going to make straight A's, be the captain of the football team or the cheerleader team, and raise up to be the smartest, brightest person in the world. Reality says it doesn't always happen. True? Come on. So the Bible says we know that God causes all things to work together for the good. Circle that phrase, we know. Circle it in your notes. Right? Look at those. We know. It doesn't say we wish, we imagine, we desire. Hey, guess what? How positive thinking. No, it just simply we know. Listen, hope is not optimism. That's not what hope is. You think it's good to be an optimistic person? Yes, I'm not. Listen, a pessimist will see a glass that's half empty. An optimist will see a glass that's half full. But a believer in Jesus Christ as the source of your hope, you don't see the glass empty, full. You don't even pay attention to the glass. You look beyond the content of the glass, and you look to the source. Oh, I'm preaching. Maybe I need to add some music behind me. Listen. I'm a believer today. I'm not an optimistic person. As a believer, I understand hope is beyond. Write this in your note. Hope is a certainty that something makes sense regardless of how it turns out. Hope is a certainty that something will make sense regardless of how it turns out. The Bible says we know. We know what? We know that God causes. In other words, listen, there's a grand master. There's a grand designer of the universe. God is up to something, folks. History is His story. There's no such thing as fate. There's no such thing as chance. There's no such thing as luck, good luck, bad luck. There's no such thing as karma. Listen, if we're going to have hope, we have to understand there's a grand master design that God is working. Come on. He's working together. I make mistakes. You make mistakes. God never makes mistakes. Nothing in God's master design ever happens by chance. Nothing in God's master design happens without His permission. Everything that goes through my life, because I'm a believer, I trust Him. He's the source of my hope. Everything goes through my life is always fathered, filtered. You understand that? He filters it. We know that God causes all things to work together. God causes all things to work together. God causes all things. Does all things include illness? Come on. Yes. Does all things include unemployment? Yes. Does all things include divorce? Yes, some of you are not quite sure about that. Does all things include miscarriage? Does all things include failure? Does all things include freak accidents? Does all things include stupid decisions that I make or you make that sometimes causes the pain in my life? Absolutely. When God is the source of my hope. God is working together. Everything is fitting into His plan. I don't understand it. I don't even see it at this moment. But I know God is in control. Now notice again, it doesn't say all things are good. It doesn't even say that God causes all things and stops there. Some people stop. Well, God causes all things. Somebody gets raped. Well, God doesn't, listen, God doesn't cause rape. God doesn't cause war. He doesn't cause poverty or famine. God doesn't cause leukemia or cancer. Listen, if you try to attribute those kind of things to God, you turn God into a monster. And let me tell you, He's not a monster. He's a heavenly Father. And the Bible teaches us that God is incapable of sinning. And God cannot lie. He cannot lie. It's not who He is. It doesn't say that God causes all things and stops. Some people we trouble with that because we see such brokenness. We see the heartache. We see the pain. We see the disappointment. But listen, everything that we encounter in this life that's not out of the perfection that God started with in Genesis comes out of our own self. It comes out of our own sin. It comes out of Satan. It's all because of Satan and sin and self that we can attribute the brokenness in our world today. But God doesn't leave us in that brokenness. He doesn't abandon us. The Bible said that God causes all things to work together. God, the source of hope, is working things together. It's not separate. He's putting the pieces together. Anybody done any baking right now? Anybody baking cake or cookies, you know? I'm a great food tester. If you need somebody, I'm a connoisseur of desserts, and I'll stop by, have a cup of coffee, and drink, eat, piece of cake, whatever. But listen, you ever notice that Rhonda's been baking some? You ever notice that you take flour, you take flour, you take that white stuff, and you take raw eggs. Don't mess with me today. Come on. You take Crisco, you take salt, you take sugar, you take all of that stuff, and individually, none of that stuff tastes good by itself. Anybody ever just eat a raw egg and say, oh, that's so good? You ever tried to eat Crisco or lard by itself? We used to cook down south with a lot of lard. I'm telling you, it's horrible. But you put the right ingredients together, you mix them together, and you get the master design going on those ingredients. Listen, can I tell you, there's a lot of things in this world that you and I experience that they're very difficult to swallow. There's a lot of things that we have to encounter in this world today that they don't taste good of themselves. But when you and I understand that we have a source of hope, His name is God. He's working together everything. He's pulling this stuff together. Listen, you might choke today on it. It might be bitter in your life today, but just hang on. The master designer is working. He's pulling this stuff together. He's going to take this hurt. He's going to take this disappointment. He's going to take this pain, and He's going to bring it together, and He's going to work it together for your good. Now, when you believe that, there's tremendous hope that abounds in your life. When you understand that He's pulling this stuff together, even the distasteful, bitter things of life, working them together. He takes every experience, brings it together, and He works it together for your good. I love that. Listen, was the crucifixion good? It was horrible. It was hard. It was one of the worst ways for a person to die. The cruelty that was built into the cross. The Romans had that as a means of death to criminals. Our Savior went to that cross. He hung. There was nothing pleasant. There was nothing good. There was nothing about the visual, the taste of what was happening. But God took the most horrible thing happen in history, and He let His Son hang on a cross, and He let Him die for you and me so He could put Him in a tomb one day and resurrect Him on the third day. That's the reason why we can have hope today. He turned it around. And Paul said He's working things together to the good for those. Now watch this. Look back at that verse, for those who love God. That verse ain't for everybody. If you're thumbing your your face at God or your fist at God and you're pushing God away. You're saying, I'm going to do life my way. I'm going to live my way. I'm going to be my way. Then I want to tell you right now, you can't lay it. Well, all things are working together for my good. No, it's not. You got another force working in your life. This verse only belongs to believers. But it is a verse that you and I can hang our hat on. When you have a heart to follow God, when you love Him, when you want a relationship with Him, when you are trusting Him to give you the power to live according to His purpose. Listen, He gives you the ability to get up every day and just keep going. Why? Because you have hope. Look at Jeremiah 29:11. God says, I have good plans for you, not plans to hurt you. I will give you hope. Everybody say hope. This is God. This is God. This is the grand designer at work. And God said, I don't have plans to hurt you. Oh, I've been hurt. And I think God did this. Liar. He didn't do that to you. We live in a broken world. Well, they told me God took my baby. They told me that God wouldn't let me have a baby. They told me God this. Listen, don't believe it. God's not a monster. He said, I've got hope. I've got plans for you. I want to give you hope. Hey, guess what? I want to give you a future. I want to give you something that you can look forward to. God says, my plan is good. You have to trust me. You have hope because I've got a plan for your future. Philippians 1:6, look at that verse. God began doing a good work in you, and I'm sure He will continue it until He's finished when Jesus Christ comes again. So the hope is God is working. The grand master design, His purpose is happening. All things are working. Not all things are good. Not God didn't cause all things, but God is taking all things together because I love Him. I want a relationship with Him. He's bringing them things together. And I can bring all of my pieces to God. I can bring all of my messes to God. If I give God all of my pieces, He will give me His peace in my life. And that's hope. You understand that? If I will give God my pieces, God will give me His peace. You see, some of us have said, well, I'm so broken and I'm so disappointed. You just don't know how hard I've been hit. You just don't know the damage that's happened in my life. Understand that. And it may feel like you're fragile. It may feel like you're broken in pieces. It may feel like that there's no way. But listen, God is a master designer. He knows your life. He's already had a purpose for that. And I don't care how many pieces it is. If you're willing to bring those pieces to Him, He will give you His peace. Psalms 138:8 says this. The Lord will fulfill His purpose for me. Your steadfast love endures forever. And my argument right here is very simple because God's love always endures forever. Can I tell you, I am certain His purposes endure forever. If God's love could somehow fail, then maybe His purposes could fail. But listen, can I tell you, He's promised us His love never fails. So therefore, I submit to you, His purposes never fail. So the Lord will fulfill His purpose for me. Your steadfast love, O Lord, it endures forever. There's a scripture there in Romans chapter 8. I don't have time to get you there, but that's probably those 6 words there is a golden chain of salvation because he talks about foreknowing, predestined, being conformed, being called, being justified, being glorified. It's all past tense. It's already happened. God speaks as though it's already taken place. He speaks as though it's already been fulfilled. Why? Because everything God says is going to be fulfilled in your life. You can bank on it. You can count on it. You can believe it. You can trust it. I don't care how dark it is right now. The sun's coming up. I don't care what difficulty you're in right now. I don't care how bleak it's seem. I don't care how painful it is. God, if God is your source and God is your hope, if that's where you're putting your trust, God's working things together, and I guarantee you He's going to make it happen for you. So His purpose. Write the second one thing down. His presence is with me. His presence is with me. Again, Isaiah 41:10 says, don't be afraid, for I am with you. Don't be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my victorious right hand. Okay, Pastor Phil, there's a grand designer. God is the source of my hope. I believe in His purpose. I believe God is working all things together for me because I love Him. And yet there are times that I feel like I am alone. There are times that it's difficulty for me to hold on to the certainty of this hope simply because I feel like I've been abandoned. People have left me. Friends have walked away. Spouses have left me. People that I cared about have abandoned me. And I told you earlier that abandonment is one of the sources of tremendous hopelessness in people's lives, and people get depressed when they feel like they have been abandoned. And listen, every one of our abandonment issues comes out of the fact of what if he doesn't come back? What if my child doesn't turn out the way I thought they should after I raised them in church? What if I do everything to take care of myself and I still get cancer? What if I get to the place where nobody is around? Listen, God says in His Word, I've got a purpose working in you. My presence is I will never leave you. That gives you hope when you believe that. Psalms 32:8, I will be your guide along the best path for your life. I will advise you and I'll watch over you. This God that is with us, He said, I'll guide you, I'll advise you. He said, I'll watch over you. The things that you can't control, the things that you think you're trying to control, the things that you're trying to figure out that you can't figure out. God already knows. He already understands. And God says, guess what? If you'll trust me as the source of your hope, if you'll trust my purpose working, I'm working all things together for the good. I'm taking this pain. I'm taking this disappointment. I'm taking this broken promise, and I'm bringing them all together. I'm working here. Don't stop. Don't pull away from the baker. Don't leave the potter's wheel. Come on, I'm preaching to somebody. Don't get off the table. God's operating. I'm working. And during this working process, God says, I'm with you. Look at Lamentations 3. Jeremiah said, I have hope. When I think of this. Most powerful thing you can do every day is to make sure you think correctly about God and God's plan and God's purpose and His presence with you in your life. Because I have hope when I think of this. What? I think how the Lord's love never fails. It never ends. His mercies never stop. They're new every morning. You understand those one phrase, those couple of verses in the Bible, as you divide it up into verses, you understand that there's enough hope to get you through any difficult time if you will trust that God is doing something. His mercies never stop. They are new every day. Have you ever had that week where you feel like, man, I'm doing good on Sunday, and by Wednesday you blew it, you made a mistake, you lost it again, you got angry, you said things, whatever, and you get there and the enemy tries to put you under condemnation, and God says, oh, guess what? Guess what? You go to bed today and you get up in the morning, and guess what? I don't care how bad you blew it yesterday, you get to start fresh in the morning. It's like Groundhog Day every day with Jesus. Isn't that awesome? It's like the 12 days of Christmas. You know, we're watching Christmas movies right now. You see that one of the movies we watched over the last week was, you know, this lady, she keeps repeating the same Christmas Eve over and over because she hadn't got it right yet. Listen, I want to tell you, I submit to you, none of us gets it right every day. None of us bats 100% with God. None of us have done everything that God wanted you to do, said everything, prayed everything, read everything. And listen, but the good news is you lay down at night and you can close your eyes and you get up in the morning and you say, God, I got a fresh start. I got a brand new day. God, you're giving me a brand new start that I can start all over again. That's the God that we serve. That's the God who's putting all things together, working them together through His purpose. His presence is with me. And here's lastly, number 3, God's place is waiting for me. You see, what really makes things bearable that seems to be unbearable for us in this world isn't just His purpose or His presence. It's understanding that our hope is not here. Our hope is ultimately in heaven. Our hope is ultimately in a destination that God has been carefully planning for us. Our hope is in the fact that he has a place. He said this in John 14. He said, don't be troubled. You trust in God. You trust in me. I'm going to prepare a place for you. Everybody say place. You see, somewhere along the line in this culture, some of you are sitting here and you're under 30, you don't hear people talk about heaven enough. Now, you hear some of this mystical stuff, and you hear people, regardless of the life that they live and the shallow life, they die, they see great lights, they don't want to come back, they come back into it. And listen, the Bible talks about heaven as being a tremendous hope for Christ followers. And some of us, you're doing your best to give you heaven here. You'll never have heaven here. You can have a pretty good hut, but you'll never have heaven upon this earth. And some of you are frustrated right now because you can't get heaven in your relationship. You can't get heaven in your job. God didn't design you to have heaven here. He put you in a place through his purpose that is working. I'm preaching, if somebody would help me. He's putting you in a place where I'm going to take you to where heaven really is. That's where your hope is. And I don't care what's going on in your life. God says this place is where you're going to find the ultimate relief. No fear, no pain, no sorrow, no conflict, no more problems. Revelation 21:4 says. All of that's gone forever. And the acid test of our faith, the acid test of where our hope is how do you handle the funerals in your life? How do you deal with the deaths that do come in this broken world? And I'm not just talking about physical deaths. That certainly takes place. I'm talking about the death of a relationship, the death of a job, the death of a career, the death of good. How do you handle that? If you've just got faith that puts you on a mountain when everything's good, you don't have no hope. But if you've got hope in the midst of darkness, if you've got hope in the midst of your valley, if you've got hope in the midst of your death that you just went through, that hope is going to keep you shining and keep you going. How do you handle the funerals in your life? I've been to people at funerals, physically ones and emotionally funerals. And I've looked at some people and they had no hope. And I've looked at others and there was a celebration of saying, okay, God, this door is shut. We put the lid on the coffin. They lowered my loved one in the ground. I understand that. But I can rejoice in the fact that there's more than just this earth. God, you've given us a hope. You've given us some, Lord, it isn't that you don't mourn. Nowhere in the Bible does the Bible says don't mourn or don't cry over things or people that you lose. Matthew 5:4, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. It does say don't fear. 365 times it says fear not. Well, I lost my job. It's right around Christmas. Fear not. Where's your hope? Well, you know, my loved one's sick and they're going to die. Fear not. Look at Isaiah 46:3. He said, listen, I've upheld you since you were conceived, and I've taken care of you from your birth. Even when you are old, I will be the same. Even when your hair is turned gray, or I have in parentheses, even turned loose. I will take care of you. I made you, and I'll take care of you. I will carry you and save you. Can you compare me to anyone? No one is equal to me or like me. That's God, folks. That's the God of hope that you and I, you listen, you can't get that kind of hope from some psychology group or some book or some tape or some therapy or some positive affirmation. That kind of hope only comes from the fact that you know God as a source of your hope. And we are able to live off of that hope on a daily basis, even in the midst of this broken world. He says this in 1 Peter 1:3. Come on, Amber. 1 Peter 1:3, in God's great mercy, he has caused us to be born again into a living. Everybody say living. In God's grace and mercy, He's caused us to be born again into a living hope because Jesus Christ rose from the dead. We're born again so we can go from no hope to a new hope to a living hope. And some of us in this room, some of us at North Johnson, some of us at our campuses around at Westville or the God Pod, listen, some of us are struggling with some of the side effects of life. I've got pain, I've got suffering, I've got heartbreak, I've got disappointment, I've got broken relationship, I've got abuse, I've got all this stuff going on. Listen, you got to remember that the purpose of God is working. His presence is there, and that He said, listen, I have a place for you. Listen, you may not feel like it, but He's aware of what's going on to you in your life. He's there with you. He cares for you, and He wants to help you. Some of us have allowed life to count us out and count us down. Some people have said that there's nothing left for you. There's no future for you. Look at Isaiah 40 and 31. Those who hope in the Lord. You hearing me? Those who hope in the Lord. Can depression try to invade your life? Yes. Listen, nobody's immune from it trying to come. But listen, if you put your hope in the Lord, it doesn't have to take control of your life. If you put your hope in the Lord, He's going to renew your strength. You're going to soar on wings like eagles. You're going to run and not grow weary. You're going to walk and you're not going to faint. God's purpose is at work in our lives. He's doing something. And God is working so to the point that when you're there and you feel like you're in the kitchen and the stove is on and you feel like I can't stand the heat, so I want to get out of the kitchen. God said, don't get out of the kitchen. I'm pulling these ingredients together in your life. I'm working something out, and I guarantee you that if you'll stay true to me, you're going to get through this, and ultimately not here on earth, but you're going to have that living hope. Because I got a place prepared for you. Anybody here ever seen the movie Seabiscuit? Anybody ever seen the movie Seabiscuit? Come on. Seabiscuit, movie about a racehorse. I love horses. I always love horses. Philip means lover of horses. Seabiscuit was a racehorse that by every practicality did not fit the mold of being a good racehorse. Most racehorses, they measure horses by hand. Most racehorses about 18 hands high or wide or long. And Seabiscuit was in between that and a pony. I mean, his height was totally against him of being able to race. And they come to find out as it was training him as he would run, and he was a lazy racehorse, didn't like to work out. He would stay out in the field and lay down and eat when all the horses was there. He was lazy, but he had a leg that would kick out on him. So he's running, and everything about Seabiscuit says he'll never make it. There's just no way. So they basically trained him originally to help other horses trained to win, and they trained Seabiscuit to lose. They would basically pull him back in order to help other horses build confidence so they could get it. So up comes this guy who buys Seabiscuits, late 1930s, 38, 40, somewhere along in that. And this owner, his life was ruined. He's several marriages. He was a total wreck. He buys Seabiscuit. Then he needs a trainer, and he needs a jockey. So he finds this jockey by the name of Red. And Red is taller than most jockeys. He's heavier than most jockeys. He absolutely doesn't fit the bill to be a good jockey. And come to find out, in one of the races that Seabiscuit lost, they find out that Red was blind in one of his eyes. He thought he had the race won, and another horse come up beside him and won the race, and Seabiscuit never saw him, or the jockey never saw him Red, so he got around him and he won. How many understand if you're in a race, it's good that you know what's happening around you, right? Come on. Some of you are going to go off Seabiscuit today. You need to, but I'm not telling you to see Seabiscuit, but it's got some language to it, so just be ready for it. But listen, Listen, they got a trainer by the name of Tom Smith. Tom Smith was this unconventional trainer. He had methods that was so socially rejected at that time. So here's the scenario. You got a horse that's lazy. He's short. He's got a leg kicking out. You got a jockey. He's tall. He's fat. You got a trainer. Everybody says he's unconventional. It just won't work. Seabiscuit is on the West Coast, and they have a horse on the East Coast. That's where all the horse racing was in the late 30s. By the name of War Admiral. War Admiral was a huge horse. 18, you can't tell it there. But War Admiral was over 18 hands high, huge horse. And War Admiral was supposed to be the horse on the East Coast. So they planned this race. East Coast, West Coast would come together. 1928, they pulled this race together. Over 40 million people either went to the race, they shut down the government to listen to the race on the radio. That's how important it was, okay? Here's the story. Listen, they get to the race. One of the unique things about Seabiscuit is Seabiscuit usually would run with a pack, and he would pick people off as they would run. And they said once Seabiscuit would make eye contact with another horse, he could just literally crush that horse. He took away that horse's will to run, and Seabiscuit would run past and he would win. War Admiral was a fast starter. So Red and the trainer knew that they had to start early with Seabiscuit. He never had did this. So they trained him to respond to the bell and to a whip. They trained him to get out front and get in front of the race. They wanted him to be in front of War Admiral. So they get in front. The bell goes off. He takes off, coming around the back corner. Then they said, pull back on Seabiscuit. Listen, how many understand? It's not over until it's over. Come on. It's not done. You're not done until you're done. And they said, pull back on, let War Admiral catch up with you. And War Admiral caught up with Seabiscuit. And about that time that they come down to the final stretch, Seabiscuit, the movie's really good. You got to see. I'm not telling you see it, but it's good. They almost have eyes locking together. And Seabiscuit looks at War Admiral, and something gets inside of him, and he takes off. He crushes War Admiral never runs another race. They end up retiring him. I'm telling you today, some of you have been put down. Some of you have been counted out. But God is simply saying, He's your source of hope today. You can get up. You can keep running. You can keep pressing on. God's not giving up on you. God's about to deliver you out of the mess that you're in. But somebody needs to give God praise. Give Him praise today. God, you do something. You're the source of my hope today.